Hey everyone, Chris Lyon here. I'm a filmmaker and editor living in Louisiana, and I'm so excited that you guys are tuning in to the Film Prize Junior workshops that were so generously sponsored by Aquent. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the post-production process that Colby already started you on. I know he's gone through his file organization and backups. He's introduced you guys to basics of editing and dropping in music. And now I want to bring you into the project that I've done that is completely edited, and I've got my music laid in, I've got my cuts made, and we're going to talk about audio mixing. Now, this is a really difficult and tedious part of the process, and you need to leave enough time at the end of your project to do it, because audio is what makes a film watchable. Now, you can have the lowest quality camera, you can get away with a lot of things if you have really good sound. And that's why it's important during production that you get the best microphone that you can get the best quality sound that you can get. And I'm going to show you how to address some of the common challenges that you'll run into with sound, and then also how to make the most of what you end up getting in your production. So let's dive right in. Now, what we have here on this timeline is a documentary project that I did a few years ago about the Shreveport Farmers Market. And as you can see, I have all of my video clips. I've got 2 layers of video clips. You know, this one down here, this is actually all of my interviews. And then I have all of my B-roll, all the shots of the people shopping for their food and making purchases. And then up here I have some title cards, which I've turned off just for the sake of ease. And then down here at the bottom, I have my music tracks, and then I have my dialogue tracks. So all of the interview dialogue is on these first channels, and then I have the music down here. I'm going to play you a little bit of this just so you can get a sense of how it starts. And I'll tell you that all the music in this is by Shreveport bands. One of the suggestions that Jay Weigel gave you was to use what you had at your disposal. And so I called up my friends and I said, hey, I'm making this documentary about the Shreveport Farmers Market. Do you mind if I use one of your songs? And they said yes, graciously. So I'm going to play this for you now, and we're going to get going. I can't explain how this happened. Now, the first thing that you'll notice is that you can't hear the person talking at all. You know, if I zoom in here, you can see that somebody's talking, but this music that I've dropped in is just way, way too loud. And so I need to be able to bring that down. Now, every editing system is going to be a little bit different, but the way that the Adobe Premiere does it, which is what I've been using and what Colby demonstrated editing on earlier, is that you have these, you can see these white line right here. And this is called your automation band. And what it sounds crazy technical, but it's just the volume basically for your audio. And you can see I have one here on my dialogue track, and I have one here on my audio track. And what I need to do is I need to use this line and move it up and down based on how much volume I need at a given particular time. Now, you can use special transitions, which Colby mentioned in his video editing. There are transitions for audio as well, and those are usually fade-ins and fade-outs. They go kind of at the beginning and the end to help you raise and lower the volume. But if you are trying to just bring down audio enough to hear someone speak, and it's the same piece of music, and you want that music to continue underneath that dialogue, using a transition, I can't drop that here in the middle of my clip. So I have to use this volume level line to adjust my audio. Now, the way that I do that is if I want to adjust the volume overall, I can just click on the white line, and I can drag it down or I can drag it up to find the volume that works. So let's listen to it now. I brought this down here, minus 20, let's just try to do right around 20, somewhere in there. And I'm gonna watch it now and see what I can hear.
Shreveport Farmers Market has been in existence somewhere in the downtown area since 1986. Well, the very essence of a farmer's
Okay, well now I can hear Noma, who's the former head of the farmers market, speaking just fine. But the problem is that when I don't have any of Noma speaking, that volume is really low and it doesn't give me the punch that I really want it to have. So I need to be able to have it a volume up while she's not talking and volume down when she is talking. But as you can see, when I click and I move, it moves the entire line across the video clip. So I need some way to indicate to the software that I want it to be volume up in the earlier part of the clip and then to go down in the later part of the clip. Now, one way I could do this is I could make a cut on the audio using the cut tool. And then now that the clips are separate, I can lower one and leave the other one up. So it sounds something like this.
Shreveport Farmers Market has been in existence somewhere in the...
Okay, so now it's loud in the beginning and it's soft when Noma is speaking, but you hear that really fast drop off. It's not very smooth. So what I need to do instead, I'm going to undo these adjustments that I just made and undo my cut. And I'm going to use the pen tool. Now the pen tool is great because it allows you to make a lot of different adjustments. It's not just used for audio, but in this case, it's going to work just great. Now, what the pen tool does is it allows you to make a marker. So if I click on this line, you can see now that a blue dot has appeared on the audio level. And increase this window size so you can see, and I'm going to increase the size of this layer by clicking and dragging down so you can see a little bit better. Now I have this blue dot. Okay, so what do I do with that? Well, this dot says, hey, this is a point in time where the audio is where I want it to be. And okay, so I want it to go from loud to soft. So I need to make a second keyframe, a second dot. And what this does is allows me to change the volume across time. So I can now go back to I've got my pen tool on now. I can go back to my select tool and I can grab this blue dot, this keyframe, and I can drag it down. And you see what happens here? This line now shows that it's going in the downward direction over a period of time. So now let's listen.
Shreveport Farmers Market has been in existence.
That's much, much better. So we've created a keyframe using the pen tool on this audio level line. And then I've created a second keyframe and I've put the first keyframe where I want the audio to be prior to that keyframe. And then I've made a second keyframe and dragged it down. And now the audio level is lower and the audio level decreases along this line. Now, if I wanted that transition of volume to last a longer period of time, I can click and drag this first keyframe over and see how it's making this transition line longer. Let's listen to it now. Actually, I'm going to bring this out a little bit more. Let's listen to this audio change now.
Shreveport Farmers Market has been in existence somewhere in the downtown.
Well, that's interesting. Now, at this point, it's really up to you. You get to decide as a creative decision how long you want this transition to be. And that is your choice. So I'm going to go ahead and set this where I think that it might be best. And then I want to address something else. I'm going to mute this whole music track just so that we can hear only Noma, the speaker's audio. All right, here we go.
Shreveport Farmers Market has been in...
Notice how that just cuts right on. I like to make sure that all of my clips have a smooth in and out. And the way to do that is you can either use an audio transition and drag it on like that, and use that as your means of transitioning up so you don't have such a harsh beginning to that sound clip. Or I'm going to undo, and I'm going to increase the size of this layer so I can see more detail. I can use my pen tool again and click, and that's where I want my audio level, and then I can make a second one, and I can drag that first keyframe all the way down. So now the volume is all the way down and it transitions up as she begins to speak. Now this is something that you'll have to experiment with, and you'll get really quick at it as you do this more and more. And as I zoom out here, you'll see how many times I need to do this over the course of my project. It gets to be something that you get a lot of practice with. In fact, when I'm editing a project, I actually go ahead and do this part while I'm editing, once I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty close to what I'd like to be. And that way, when I'm mixing in my music, I don't have to worry about doing this tedious work while I'm trying to mix my music. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of that here and there. Set these, and of course, I have a lot of practice with this, so I know a little bit more what I like. And so I'm fairly confident when I put these keyframes down that they're going to be just what I need. But you see here, I'm just creating an increase in volume at the beginning and a decrease in volume at the end. And here, what I have on this bottom layer, just as a quick note, is sound from the farmer's market. And that's important because when Noma stops speaking, I don't want all of the background sound, because when we were recording her interview, all these people were talking and making noise in the background. And if I were to just fade this piece out right here really quickly, all of a sudden there would be dead space. I'm going to mute the audience track or the background track and just let you hear what that sounds like.
Farmers to come get together and sell their wares.
And you see now that this is dead space. It feels empty. But if I turn on this track, which is, I just found a clip that we were recording when we were recording some of this B-roll of just the attendees of the farmers market talking and laughing. Let's take a listen to that now.
Together and sell their wares. Shreveport.
Aha, now the breath sounds natural because I have a little bit of that background sound in my project. And it's actually a really good idea when you're recording your footage while you're on set. If you have a very noisy set or location, that you record just a little bit of ambience. We call this room tone. And this room tone, or area tone, if it's outdoors, is really great for just this kind of problem, where you have someone speaking, and when you cut their audio off because you need to make an edit, and you don't have enough room to fade out smoothly for a long period of time, you can bring in this room tone and put it just underneath, and that way you have a little bit smoother of a transition between your shots. So always capture some room tone when you're on set. And this is just, I recommend maybe 10 seconds where the whole crew and the cast and everyone is really quiet, and you just capture the background sound empty, whether it's cars going by or birds chirping, that kind of thing. So let's continue on. So I'm going to be adding a transition here to this clip here because I don't want that one to start abruptly as well. It's just good practice to have a good fade in and fade out on all of your audio tracks, no matter what. And then now we've got this room tone and Noma's dialogue sounding pretty good. Let's take a listen.
All their wares. Shreveport Farmers Market takes place at...
Perfect. I love that. Now let's get back to the music, okay? I'm going to shrink up this layer here so we can see our music again. Too much. All right, so let's take a listen again. Oh, I need to unmute here. Okay, let's take a listen again.
Shreveport Farmers Market has been in existence somewhere in the downtown area since 1986. Well, the very essence of a farmer's market, particularly as we interpret, is a place for local and regional, in our case, because we've got a lot of people to feed, farmers to come get together and sell their wares. Shreveport Farm.
Okay, so I've come to this place where I had a little short break during that first edit, and now in the second edit, I have a much longer area of no speaking from Noma. Now, one of the things that I could choose to do is to raise the volume of the music so that the music comes up and sort of fills that emptiness. And so I'll take my pen tool again, and in this case, instead of making two keyframes, I'm going to make four. And so I'm going to set one where I have my track now, because if I just raise this one, you see that it's going to increase the volume from that previous one. We don't want that. We want the sound to be the same level all the way across until I want it to change. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to place my first keyframe, and then I'm going to place my second keyframe, and I'm going to drag that up. Now, notice that this first keyframe stays where it is, and all of that sound stays at the same level that I wanted it to be. But now I have my new audio level. And then I'm going to make a third and a fourth keyframe. And again, this third keyframe is going to make sure that this section of music stays the volume that I'd like it to be. And then I'm going to bring down the sound to the same level that I have it here. It's important to be consistent. And so now it should go from soft to a little bit louder to soft again. Let's take a listen.
Together and sell their wares. Shreveport Farmer.
Okay, well that's a little bit abrupt. That's a little bit too loud, because it's not really long enough for us to get used to the music being that loud. And so we really don't need it to be that loud, but we do want it to fill space a little bit. So I'm going to grab this first keyframe. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Still higher than it was earlier in the piece, but not as high as we had it set last. I'm going to bring that third keyframe and that second keyframe down, and now we've made a little bit lower of a change here. It was also a little bit fast, that transition, and Noma was still speaking while the transition was happening, so I'm going to move this keyframe down a little bit and move this keyframe down a little bit, and now my transition will start more in line with when she stops talking. And I'm going to do the same thing here, where we want to make sure that we are low enough in volume when she starts talking again. So I'm going to move that third keyframe over, I'm going to move that fourth keyframe over, and let's take a listen again.
Together and sell their wares. Shreveport Farmers Market takes place.
That's better, but it's still a little bit too loud, so I'm going to bring that down just a little bit, and then I'm going to move on to my next area. Now, it's important that you go back and you listen to enough of the project before and after. I like to just click back through and maybe listen to 10 or 15 seconds before a transition, and I listen to a good 10 seconds afterward. And that way that I know that my audio levels are correct, not just for that moment, but in the entire project. It's important to have a good sense of continuity or regularity of your changes across your entire project. That way the audience isn't listening to something that's getting increasingly louder over time or increasingly softer over time, so they don't have to adjust the volume on their computer or on their device. So it's important to go through and listen and make sure that everything sounds perfect and you don't have to touch the volume on your computer at all. That's the number one goal for you as an audio editor, is to service the story by providing good variation in sound so that the dialogue can be heard and that the music is impactful where you want it to be, but also you're trying to reduce the amount of effort that a user has to make any adjustments. You don't want the person to sit there with their remote or on their phone and have to be adjusting the volume up and down all the time. You want them to be able to click play and watch it all the way through. The other important aspect is to have a good overall sound level, something that when somebody clicks on it, it's a pleasant volume, they can hear what's happening, but it doesn't burst their eardrums. We've all clicked on that video that just blew us away, and we were all of a sudden having to adjust the volume, and all that while, they're missing anything that's happening. They're not watching, they're not listening, they're just trying to adjust the volume. So your goal is to have a good overall sound level, and the question is, what's a good sound level? How do you know what's good? Well, there's actually a way that you can do this. Now, there are a few different schools of thought on what a good overall sound level is, but in my experience, you can use this audio meter here on the side. And if you'll notice, on the edge is a list of numbers, 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and so on. And these numbers represent what is called the decibel level, which is just the industry term for volume. Now, I have to admit, I've already got my levels in a pretty good place. The -12 level is kind of about right. Some people like to go a little bit higher for YouTube, but if you're delivering to a theater or a film festival or a television station, -12 is probably pretty good. Sometimes festivals will tell you what level they want, or a broadcaster might tell you what level they want, but I find that -12 is a good middle ground, and you can always adjust up and down the volume for the entire project after the fact. But since I had a good sound mixer, my audio levels are already just right. But I know that the volume is going to go up and down based on how loud someone is speaking. If someone's yelling, you want it to be loud. If someone's whispering, you want it to be soft. So you don't always have to bring up a volume level to be -12. That's just where you want your normal, everyday speaking voice level to be. And then the quiet things can be quieter, the loud things can be louder. Now, why I choose -12 is really important for the sound level, because if I want somebody to yell, I need my levels to have room to go all the way up to the top. If I start at the highest level for everyday conversation, and I want somebody to yell or scream, I don't have anywhere for the volume to go up. So it's good to leave room at the top. And of course, you don't want it to be too low, or no one will be able to hear, and someone will try to turn up the volume on their device and there won't be enough volume to give them. So -12 is a great place to start, and it gives you room on both sides. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to know the level of sound across the board and to know what kind of listening experience you're giving your audience. So once you've set your sound levels where you want them to be, it's really important that you sit down and watch your film from beginning to end, the first frame to the last frame. Don't touch the sound on your keyboard or on your system. Only edit the sound in the project where the lines are, where we were making our keyframes. Because anytime you reach for your keyboard to make an adjustment because it's too loud or soft, then your viewer is going to have to do the same. So you want to set your computer level at a proper volume so that you can do the editing, so you can hear the soft things but not be blown away by the loud things, and then make all of your adjustments. And don't touch your system audio while you're making adjustments to the sound in your project. And then, it's also a very smart idea in general, but certainly for sound, to watch your movie on different devices. Somebody might be watching your video on YouTube on the phone, or they might be watching it on their desktop computer with some speakers sitting on the desktop, or they might be watching it on their television. It's really important for you to test your film, certainly for sound, but for all the reasons, color, brightness, just general picture. You want to watch it the way that your viewers are going to be watching it to check everything out. So those are my quick audio level adjustment tips, showing you a few tools, remembering the keyframes and the audio level lines, making sure that you make the adjustments over time so that they're smooth. Remember to record your natural sound, your room tone or area tone when you're on set, so that you have that as an option if you need it in post-production. It's really hard to get those things once you've missed the opportunity. So these are things that kind of come with experience and practice. I can't wait to see what you guys produce for the competition this year. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today, and I hope you learned something. I'm Chris Lyon with the Film Prize, signing off.